right, everybody, welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. Thank you for your company this morning from wherever it is you're watching us from. Remember, you can reach me on 22999. You can also get a hold of us through our social media platforms at Switch TV KE on Instagram, at Switch TV Kenya on Facebook and Twitter. And you can also reach me at Joyce Omondi across all social media platforms. Shout out to those of you who already tuned in and have checked in with us. Prince Moon, Asante Sana, you say you're watching us from Uhuru Estate in Eldoret. Abby Tush Jr. from Embu, Veru Paul from Nyeri, Aisha Faya from Jericho, Kipchirchir Chamite from Timboroa, Abby Tush Jr., you're watching us as usual, you say from Embu, thank you very much. Tabby from Kiserian, Ruby Laura Chebi from Lodwa, Omanyala Maureen, thank you so much. You say you just love this show. And Lois Molly as well from Matara. Asanteni sana to all of you guys for watching and being a part of the show. Now, let me introduce my guests this segment. With me, I have John Waitara Ndungu, who's a social entrepreneur and motivational speaker. Welcome to the show. I also have Dijo Mwaniki, who's a writer and actor as well. Karibu sana to the show.
Asante.
And today we want to talk about creativity versus morality. Okay, that's going to be the subject of our discussion today. Is there a thin line between the two? And that's what we want to discuss again with them. 22999 is the SMS line. So we live in this age where there's a lot of us saying that we want freedom of expression, that we need to be able to, have freedom of speech, be able to put out exactly what we feel. But then the question then does remain, is there a line that we can tend to often cross with that? Or should we just give this sort of blanket approval for what people should desire to do? What should be the responsibility of an artist?
Thank you, Joyce, for having me here. It's a good question because it's a discussion that we've had for a while now. And I think there should be a line. There should be a line because as creatives, we are remembered most for what we did or what we do. And our work supersedes our life. So not just even for this generation, but in years to come, people are going to see what we do. They're going to study us. They're going to want to know what we stood for. Mm-hmm. And I firmly believe that there should be a line.
Okay.
Yes.
How about for you? Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm glad. Being a creative, he actually agrees there should be a line. I was worried we'd be antagonistic. Definitely, there should be a line because we're not just other beings. We're human beings. We are rational beings. And it's very easy for us to go down south. So if we don't draw that line, we can really go way below what should be our level of understanding in the sense that creativity is a great instrument. If not well harnessed, it can bring the beast in all of us.
Right. Speaking of that beast, like what is it that we're most afraid of that this unharnessed creativity or almost unregulated in a sense could do? What sort of effects are we talking about?
The unmentionable, uncountable. There are many effects to this. I agree with what you've said that creativity can be a beast if unleashed without a leash. Now, the thing is, creativity depends on a person and what they stand for. However, I believe that the most creative being around us is God, and even him being who he is and being, I believe personally that he is a creator. He had his moments, and there are those limits that we all should take up. So, like you're saying, I really can't say the numbers, the effects, but they would be countless. They would be countless. And even just going back to the African culture and what we believe and how we were raised up, I believe that there are those things that we need to hold on to, just for the fact that we are Africans, and it's not being backward. It's not being shao. It's just they define who we are. Even as Kenyans, they define us. And if we let them go, we are on a downward trend.
What are some of those things that you think we should be holding on to?
I admire our ways of storytelling. Like just from when we were young, a story would start like Hapo Zamani za Kale. It would have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we concentrated on the morals. You know, sungura, sijui sungura mjanja and the hyena. And we would talk about family morals, father, mother, son, daughter, and all, without even, let's say, for example, going sexual. It's not bad being sexual. We are sexual beings. We have been created by God like that. However, there is a way we should limit how we expose these stories to people. You know, we don't have to be graphic for us to tell a sexual story, for example.
Right.
And I believe these stories had them. Yo, mzee ameoa wakaenda wakapata watoto. That was by the way, we didn't concentrate on what they did.
On the act.
Yes, so
I think it's very interesting that you raise that point of just trying to hold on to what we knew, and your point that even as far as storytelling in our society before, it was really focused on putting out certain values. It was about teaching principles, morality, ethics, values. Do you agree that now it seems that there's a flip, like we've flipped the script entirely, that almost like it's almost in a sense that some of our storytelling is a form of rebellion maybe against that whole teaching of morality, teaching of ethics, teaching of, you know, this traditional customs and whatnot. What would you say to that?
Okay, before I come to your question, at the risk of sounding pedantic, I like to take two approaches. First of all, let's look at creativity. So creativity is supposed to be putting out some piece of work out there. And the essential idea, at least the original concept of creativity, is to entertain and to educate. So if you lose out on those two aspects, you're already off the wrong direction. And then morality or morals is just a code of conduct in which people have always believed, and it's based on the values that they have. Now, the issue you're talking about now comes in now because we've commercialized creativity. So initially, creativity, as you were saying, the storytelling, music, it was either for worship or for functions and everything else. So really, people never used to make money per se out of their creativity. But you see, nowadays, it's about, it has been commercialized. So you use your creativity to live on it, which is not a bad thing. But then again, you have to understand the human being. You have two tendencies, towards that which is arduous or difficult and towards that which is pleasurable. Now, creativity is supposed to lift you up towards that which is arduous, which is elevating, is high, that keeps with your spirit. But then we have that aspect, we tend towards that which is below the belt, if you wish. And then that sells easy, you know, and that doesn't take a lot of effort, you know. To produce a masterpiece, I mean, if you've ever attended an orchestra, that's a lot of work, you know, to have all that harmony and symphony and everything else. It's very easy. Right. Whereas in a commercial song, you just need to get a good producer, he gets into a studio, doesn't have to play any instruments, just a bit of computer here and there, and off you have a bit, you understand? So that is, it's not a bad thing, you know, but it's at a lower level, you know.
But then is it saying, clearly then it is saying that even the standard of what we think is good or a successful, say, music video today has shifted.
Exactly.
But the question is, who shifted it?
It has shifted because of what I'm trying to tell you, commercialization. Nowadays, everything is about making money. Does it sell, you know? And what sells naturally is easy and not arduous, you know. So you want to make a quick buck, you know. So you're not going to spend 6 months preparing a concert, you understand? Where else you can go into a studio, within a day you have a song, you know, and a week you have an album. So that is actually where the crux of the matter is.
But there are plenty of artists who are still doing songs and whatnot without having compromised their morality.
Definitely.
So my question still remains of, how is it that we went from this is bad, don't do it in public, to now we are celebrating it, we are purchasing it. I mean, that then speaks to us too as consumers.
Exactly.
yeah, sure. I think it's the level of exposure, especially our generation had when growing up. I have a friend who says that her mom told her, boys are bad. Until she experienced boys, and you know, it was a whole different story. I think it's the level of exposure that we were given and that we give out there. Now, everything is permissible, right? It depends on how you put it and how you address it.
Right.
Now, sex sells, or any other controversial thing. Like you're saying, it's an easy way to make a quick buck. However, let's not also you know, dilute the fact that there is some creativity in all that. However, I think, just to answer your question, that we shifted because some of us didn't understand the reason behind what we were being taught. You know, we're being told, a girl is told, "Kaa vizuri." That is how you're told. You're not told the reason why. Some of these stories would push us to tell us that this is how a good person lives. This is, you know, a good friend and all. We were not taught to understand the reason behind it.
Right.
Right. And way back, people used to, you know, they would our grandfolks would make us understand. However, I got to a point where now I'm just doing it because I need to do it. And even as a teacher, for example, I'm just doing my job. I need to teach and making a buck. So I really don't care whether you understand or not.
Yeah.
And I believe that's where the focus now shifted. And there came a generation, and I believe it's probably from our generation upwards, and we realized, Apana, there's something that we need to express.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And the space that we have, we don't have mentors, so we express it the way we know it.
What would you say to the ones who say, I mean, I think we can all here admit media, music, the arts, creativity in itself is a very powerful tool.
It is.
Right? What would you say then to the ones who find and maybe even can support the argument that a lot of what we're seeing today in media and creativity, in the forms in which it's coming, is actually linked to very many different agendas. Because there's always a cause that is sort of being pushed through the songs we're singing, through the media we're consuming. Is that a fallacy? Is that a conspiracy theory? Or as a creative yourself and people working in this space, do you agree? Do you acknowledge that indeed we almost have to stay woke because there are agendas that are behind some of these things?
Definitely. And as I try to explain the concept of morality, you know, there's a saying which says, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So also these things you're talking about are a reflection of what is inside. You know, so people have very little content inside, you know. I mean, I deal a lot with young people. I was giving a talk to some young people and asked them, have you guys read Alice in the Wonderland? And they're like, no, you know. Have you guys read Harry Potter? And they're like, no. So like, what do you guys read? So we watch YouTube videos, you know. So we have moved away from that. So really, there's no content inside people. So whatever they produce is a reflection of what is in their hearts, the values they've been taught, the attributes they have seen around them, and things like that. So definitely, you can expect people like that to have a challenge in producing something that is very high level. Then the other thing is there's a emphasis on autonomy, you know, my space, you know, my thought, my views, my everything, which is all, again, a huge fallacy, because we live in a community. So what you think is not enough. It's subject to what I think and what we agree as a group. And of course, also, it is anchored on our nature as human being. I mean, if you believe you can walk on your head, that's just nonsense, you know. So we have to understand that. So people have to realize, okay, fine, you're free, you have your rights, you have your freedom and everything else, but they operate within a context. And that context is what we really need to rediscover. That whatever you do has an impact on my dignity, on my well-being and everything. So once we discover that, we can have a shared values, and that can inform what we put outside there.
I guess the argument that one may raise against what you're saying about understanding that you're within a shared context is that a lot of people are actually trying to break out of that context. They want to reach out to have a global audience, to expand their viewership, to expand their audiences. And so does that then sort of make the case for having to break those cultural boundaries specifically?
No, you don't have to look at boundaries, and that's why he's using the analogy, a very ridiculous analogy of trying to walk on your head. The boundaries are set by our nature. You understand? There's something that as a human being you cannot do, you know. For instance, you cannot fly, you know. So you can use technology and science and to make an aeroplane, but you have to understand there are certain laws within which you can operate. And then to take the argument to its logical conclusion, the other question is, look at the end. Are we any happier? You know? I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm fascinated by the Lord of the Ring and the movies and things like that. And the people who are afraid it will not sell, you know, because it did not have some of those racy scenes, but it was one of the best movies, you know. So people appreciate those things, you know. I gave the example of orchestra. I mean, it's not the boom twaf kind of music, but it has its own clientele, you know. And itself, people pay premium to watch those things.
Just before we go on break, I want you to comment on this point that we're discussing here from the perspective of what we are now all hashtagging, which is no human is limited. So, you know, based on his point, which is a valid point, that there are certain laws of nature that bind us, right?
Yes.
But then at the same time, we're here hashtagging all over the place that no human is limited. Does that still apply?
Allow me briefly just to talk on the agenda thing. Briefly,
Sure.
I believe there is an agenda. And one of the, actually the most powerful tool to use when pushing an agenda is creativity, media, films, music. So, and people have realized that, people with money, and they're putting a lot of money to push
Sure.
that. No human is limited. I agree. But, however, it's only logical for you to do only what a human can do, right? When I say no human is limited, my creativity cannot then afford me to go in top of KICC and jump because I'm not limited. However, in terms of, you see, there are natures,
So
there are
there's a sense
principles.
to it.
Yeah, there are principles that guide this world, whether we like them or not, whether we believe them or not. Like, we don't see air. We don't see oxygen, but it is there. So if you
Right.
don't breathe, you will die.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's the same thing, even when I saying no human is limited, it is in that scope, in that area of
Yeah.
what a human being
And
can do.
briefly,
I
allow
have
me
to
to
go on break
interject.
very
Okay.
briefly.
The other thing is, look at that lack of limit. Are we any happier? You understand? And you can see some of the creatives, you know. I mean, we have many creatives who have actually ended committing suicide.
It's
That
true.
can tell you something, you know.
Yeah.
So you can't run away from those confines.
That's true. That's
Yes.
very true. Guys, if you're just joining us, we're talking here about creativity and morality. We're going to take a short break right now, but we'll be back with my guests to continue this discussion. And some of the things I want to touch on now, moving away from sort of like adult morality, even with our children, okay? So the sort of cartoons that are out today, lots of subliminal messages, advertising subliminal messages as well. And we want to talk about this as well. And for those of you who are creatives or wanting to get into this space, what sort of checks and balances have you put for yourself? Are you paying attention to the morality, the ethics, the principles that you're standing by, or are you just there living it out? 22999 is the SMS line. You can also reach me on Facebook at Switch TV Kenya. We'll be back after this break. All right, everybody, welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. Thank you once again for your company. I do see those of you who are SMSing in. Someone here says, hey, Joyce, you're looking awesome as always. Thank you very much for that. That's Caroline watching us from Meru. Good morning, Joyce. Another Caroline tuned in from Juja. And you say your weekend was fantastic. You're looking forward to authentic conversations and the show. Another says, good morning, Joyce. It's a beautiful morning God has granted unto us. Looking forward to learning from Full Circle with you. Thank you. Mambo Joyce, naitwa Mamba Angel kutoka Nkubu Meru. Napenda show yako sana. Hata kama sometimes kizungu kinanipita, we jameni. Asante sana Mama Angel kuungana nasi asubuhi ya leo. Barikiwe sana hapo Meru. Someone else says, good morning, Joyce. My weekend was good. Celebrated my sister's graduation. That aside, today's topic on creativity versus immorality seems very, very interesting, and you're really waiting on it. Fanny, you're also watching us from Obama Estate and enjoying the show. Asanteni sana to all of you. Keep your feedback coming in to 22999, and you can also reach me on Facebook at Switch TV Kenya. Specifically, I'll be looking out for your comments to the question, is there a line between creativity and morality? What are your thoughts on that? Those are the SMSs and the feedback that I'm going to be looking out for on our Facebook page. So, gentlemen, welcome back to the show. As we get back to this discussion here, you know, one of the things that we cannot seem to avoid nowadays is just the prevalence of cartoons or animated content. And it's nice to see that level of creativity come out. I mean, there are things that are very fascinating. I mean, just looking at the production quality of Wakanda alone, I mean, people call it Wakanda and it's Black Panther, of Black Panther, for example, which then created this movement that even white people were, you know, Wakanda forever. Brown people were like Wakanda forever. And I guess that in many ways that's showing the power of creativity, right? But then again, when we point it to our children, and you look at the sort of subliminal messaging that there is even in cartoons, the sort of underlying tones that there are in the sort of things that our children are watching nowadays, everything from violence to sexuality, rebellion, what do we have to say about this? Is this part of that agenda we were speaking of earlier?
Definitely, there's an agenda to change the way people see realities. I don't know about you guys, but I have 2 tiny kids, and my firstborn son is really onto TV and all these cartoons. So I really have to monitor what he's watching. So in a sense, you have to collect the kind of material you want your child to watch with the values you want to pass to your children. So to be aware that everybody is pushing their own agenda. It could be just to market a product or to market a new way of looking at things that were previously unacceptable to become acceptable. So we cannot be naive to that. So we always have to be on top of things. I thank God some of the contents can be downloaded. So for instance, for me, we don't do live because then you have very little time to react. So you always download it, preview it, and then you can leave it to the young man to watch and the sister to come in. But of course, that agenda is there, and if you're not careful, you will have to deal with it.
And it also speaks to that present parenthood.
Exactly.
So don't use your cartoons as a way of just being a distraction.
Yes.
You have to be so intentional
To have
about
a
what
bit
your
of
kids
time.
are watching. Adija, I mean, for you,
Yeah.
you're a writer and an actor.
Yes.
What are you doing sort of to reconcile this tension here about creativity versus morality? How do you apply it in your own work?
One of the personal journey that I'm on right now is having content for kids that is local and that has, I would say, a moral angle to it, because we are letting people from outside tell stories to our children, and really they are telling stories in a good way, but they are telling them with an agenda behind it. When I was growing up, cartoons was for young people, and we had the He-Man, the She-Ra. We might not have understood what they said, but we also had the super books. We had really a collection of them.
Like we could learn.
Yeah, you could learn. For He-Man and She-Ra, I mean, I need to watch again, but one of my favorite cartoons was Captain Planet. I don't know if you watch it, Captain. It was about pollution. And there was fire, I think water, they would combine, and Captain,
Yes.
it was entertaining, edutainment.
Childhood, those were good days.
Right. Nowadays, we have cartoons that are strictly just for adults. And
Yeah.
a parent would walk in and just watch and see the kid seeing a cartoon. Ni cartoon, niko sawa. Because in their minds, they're thinking,
Because of
ni
the
cartoon.
way it's presented.
Yeah, ni cartoon. But it's really, that's strictly actually adult content.
Interesting.
I agree that we need to find a way. We need to find a way of just sieving what our children watch. I don't know how, especially in this age of internet and all. I think that's one of the key things, just to download and all. However, you are not at home, or you are at home and they have the remote, and they are doing. So what we did at home is that I had to spend a few days just internalizing these cartoons, the Paw Patrols, just to kind of see what my sons watch.
Okay.
So that when we got internet and they would YouTube, they know, and they actually know that this is the way to go.
All right, let
Yeah.
me read some feedback that I have coming in here on our SMS line. Hey Joyce, looking great, thank you. And you say, according to this topic, I think ethical values and principles should be the main key, because creativity may impact someone's life. So do good to impress the community. That's Millie watching us from Oyole. Asante sana for that. Someone else here says, Joyce, we must live within a set of rules and not excuse and not the excuse of global clientele. And then they give an interesting example. I'm still trying to decipher it, but they say, think of this. Masai Mara is in Kenya, and people come from all over the world to see animals in this natural environment. Why be immoral to attract visitors? And that's James watching us from Kawangware. And I guess we can sort of apply that comment to something we were talking about over the break, which is about good content. In a sense, I guess I'll divert that question to that. In a sense, I guess he's saying we have good content, so all of us can create good things that we can sell, and
Sure.
there will be an audience that will come to appreciate and acknowledge that good. So why choose choose to do whatever is bad, right? And in fact, there's a lot of philosophy around immoral creativity. So talk to me then about what you are calling good content and how good content can actually still sell today.
Okay, fine. I'm glad at least one of the audience has picked that one up. So that for starters, you have to realize that good content takes work, and I guess maybe that's what people are shying away from. But for the creative, good news for you, good content sells. Earlier I'd mentioned the Lord of the Ring, you know, and there was a lot of push, you know, from reading behind the scenes, the people who wanted some scenes to be massaged a bit so that they can have a certain angle, and guys said, no, this is what the story is all about. Tolkien is an amazing author and the story is incredible. So in itself, it's sufficient, you know. People still talk about the Lord of the Ring right now. I've watched it over and over and it's never boring. So, and the other thing to the creative is people are even willing to pay a premium for the good content. So you can go for the masses that will pay little and maybe their numbers and everything else. But eventually, when you have something good going, people are willing to pay and they will pay a premium for it. So you have like the movie, The Passion of Christ. There are some people in Hollywood who refuse to touch it, you know. And Mel Gibson had to finance it himself, to produce it, to direct it.
And it did very well.
And it did very well. You know, so that tells you, I mean, human beings are amazing creature. Give them good content, they will grab it, you know, and they will pay for it. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, we also have that other side of us that can really go south pretty fast. And you feed that side, and then you have something terrible, you know.
Okay.
And then we pay for it as a society with all the funny things that we are seeing around.
Okay, I'll take that as your final comments. Let's have yours.
All right. Good content is relative. Let me challenge you to look for Kenyan content and use that as examples, because we really have. I work with a company called Film Lab Kenya, and our mandate is to tell stories for social responsibility and for ministry. I recently did a film called Lost in Time, and it's heavy on mental illness. However, it's a story of a man who needs to forgive himself and move on. So what I'm saying here is that good content, good is relative. However, I agree with you to the extent that...
What do you mean by that?
It's relative. Your understanding of good and good content and my understanding is like whatever my wife finds enjoyable and I are totally different things, right?
But isn't that sort of against what we're then saying about there being a standard?
No, it's not, because here's the thing. Good now in terms of being moral, there is good content. You can have good moral action stories. You get, or good moral drama stories. However, I need to say this, as creatives and as a creative in Kenya, our duty is to talk about stuff that affect the society, but have a moral stand to it. Because like you're saying, good content sells and it has its viewers. We need to package our stories in a way that people understand what we are saying, even when addressing the issues that people feel are bad. Am I making sense?
Sure. Okay.
Right? So we don't hide our head under the sun and say, I'm not going to talk about drunkenness. All right, let me play safe. Drunkenness. Right? So let me talk about it without glorifying it.
No, absolutely.
Without telling people go this way. Just leave a question and let people know.
All
My
right.
final comment would be, right? Very quickly. As a DJ, I have a mandate and I know that people are going to come years later and tell me, my children are going to ask me, where were you when they allowed all this on telly, on media? And I have a mandate, and we have a mandate as Kenyan parents to just check out stuff that people will be proud of, authentically Kenyan and morally upright.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, to both of you for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
Our time is up for this segment, but I also do appreciate those of you who've been engaged with us for this discussion. Griffins from Embakasi, Asante Sana, Winnie, you're watching as well. Mama Blessing, Asante Sana, you're saying you're enjoying the show and wishing all of us a great morning. Benja from Nairobi, you say that was a great conversation indeed. Asante Sana. Well, we're going to get ready for our second hour. We need to bring in our couch as we get ready to talk about personal development, and there's lots for you to be in store for, to be waiting for as we get ready for that. Remember, 22999 is the SMS line. You can also reach me on social media at Twitch TV Kenya, on Facebook and Twitter, at Twitch TV KE on Instagram, and at Joyce Omondi across all platforms. With that said, I'll see you at the top of the hour.